is an application by Two-Way Black Car, otherwise known as Carmel Car Service. Is a representative from Carmel here tonight?
You all are here from Carmel?
Apparently not yet. In that case,
Are you guys ready?
we will go to the main event.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Elizabeth Caputo. I chair Community Board 7. This is our transportation committee. We, as many of you know, have worked really hard along with the community over the past years on issues related to pedestrian safety. Tonight's meeting is really a meeting to discuss Amsterdam Avenue and some of the improvements that the DOT has worked really hard on to try to make after a lot of requests and input from the community over the past years. So I just wanted to briefly go through the agenda tonight with all of you, just so everyone's clear about what this meeting is and is not about. Tonight's meeting is to discuss Amsterdam Avenue. There's going to be a presentation by the DOT. Following that presentation, there will be questions of fact that members of the community can ask, followed by questions of fact that the board can ask. Then there will be 1-minute opportunities for people to provide comments on the plan itself. There will not be a vote taken tonight by Community Board 7. The goal of tonight's meeting is to collect as much community input as possible about the plan that's going to be presented. And again, the DOT has worked really hard to put something forward that they think reflects the needs of the community, but they want to have our input tonight. So with that in mind, we are under very strict time constraints in this building. We will be completing public comment at 9:30. Following this meeting, there will be a further discussion, most likely in January or February, when the DOT comes back to us after considering all of our input. So we're really thrilled that we have such a great turnout tonight, and we look forward to working with all of you in the coming months as this plan moves forward. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Margaret Forgione and her team, who will be delivering the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hi, I'm Margaret Forgione from DOT. I'm the Borough Commissioner for Manhattan. We're happy to be here tonight. We're here in response to a previous request, or perhaps two, from the Community Board to examine how a parking protected bike lane and other safety improvements would look on Amsterdam Avenue. So we're going to run through our proposal for Amsterdam Avenue, as well as touch on several alternatives very briefly. We're here tonight to get your input both on Amsterdam and the alternatives as we all decide together how to proceed. So I'd like to introduce Sean Quinn. He's the director of our bicycle and pedestrian unit, and he'll run us through the presentation. This one?
Hello. I'm glad to see such a big crowd coming out tonight to talk about our Vision Zero Safe Streets in the Upper West Side. We have a lot to talk about, and so I will just get started. Thank you. I want to have with me Patrick Kennedy, who's the project manager on this project. He'll be helping me with the slideshow and just answering questions at the end. So tonight we're going to be going through several things. We'll start with the background on Amsterdam Avenue and the Upper West Side, plus other things that we've done in the neighborhood already. We'll talk about the design that we want to propose and that we're focusing on tonight. We're going to talk about how we're going to make it work, how we can make the design we're proposing on Amsterdam actually work. We're going to talk about the alternatives that we studied. We did look at a few other routes in the neighborhood at the request of the community board. Then a summary of what we're looking for, and then next steps for the coming months. So in 2010, we began installing our southbound bicycle facility on Columbus Avenue. Of course, with that facility, it's a separated bike lane with pedestrian islands and various safety benefits for all users on the street. We extended that facility from to the north and to the south in 2013, and then currently, as we speak, we have the extension through the bow tie at Lincoln Center. That project is nearly wrapping up in the coming weeks, so you should see that soon. But when you're looking at the northbound route in the neighborhood, there is no corresponding northbound protected lane to serve the Upper West Side. Due to that, and due to various other reasons with Amsterdam Avenue and the history of safety concerns at Amsterdam Avenue, CB7 asked us to study the corridor for improvements and for a potential northbound route, and to look at other potential possibilities. You can see here, just for reference, Columbus is in the dark green, Amsterdam is in the middle. The graphic is a little faded out, but Amsterdam is here in the middle, Broadway to the west, West End Avenue, and then Central Park West is to the east of Columbus. So we started with looking at Amsterdam Avenue as the logical northbound pair for Columbus. There are challenges that are presented by Amsterdam Avenue that we had to work through, and it's part of the reason why it's taken us a few tries to come to this sort of conclusion. One of the main issues is that the subway plaza at 72nd Street forces all of Broadway traffic, Broadway 10th Avenue traffic, onto Amsterdam. So a lot of volume is ending up on Amsterdam Avenue northbound, and a lot of that volume isn't diverting back over to Broadway to continue north. It's staying on Amsterdam Avenue. The corridor has high volumes, as I just discussed. It's a bus route, it's a local truck route, and it has a lot of active curbside loading. It's a very active commercial corridor, local commercial corridor. So we, keeping all of that in mind, we want to begin by focusing our efforts on Amsterdam north of 72nd Street. So today I'm going to be talking mostly about north of 72nd Street on Amsterdam Avenue.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
Yeah, we're going to have questions at the end of the presentation.
I know it. I should just.
No, thank you. Please.
Folks, please, let's hear the presentation. Everyone will have a chance for questions.
So, like I said, we're going to be focusing on north of 72nd Street and the challenges that brings with it, the traffic volumes, the uniqueness of this corridor versus the corridor south of 72nd. And it is a good northbound section. It's already connected to our network for northbound cyclists via Central Park West and the crosstown routes in 77, 78, as well as crosstown routes in the 90s. South of 72nd Street, there's a few things to consider. We need to determine the best network connection. There might be more than one, as I've sort of illustrated here. Amsterdam, of course, is the clearest connection to Amsterdam Avenue. Deciding on the southern limit of that, though, beyond CB7, requires us to continue or begin that discussion with the community board to the south. So once we start talking about phase 2, we will be engaging the community board to the south of CB7 to connect to the existing routes in the 50s. Additionally, we want to look at potential connections to the northbound 8th Avenue route via Broadway. And we need to figure out the best way to get the cyclists through the bow tie. There's a planned capital construction project there that will begin in June of this year, of 2016, that will build out all of the painted spaces that you see that DOT installed in 2010, I believe. So that project, we need to coordinate our timing of bike facilities through the bow tie with the capital construction project, and to decide on the best design getting through there with the connections that we choose. Those are the main considerations. And of course, south of 72nd, as soon as we get through this process today and the next meeting or so, we're going to start talking about south of 72nd immediately. We want to get your feedback, even tonight. Tonight is the beginning of that process. So we're not slowing that down. We know that we can make north of 72nd work. We want to move forward with that as we begin the discussions on the south of 72nd. So one important factor in really focusing on the Upper West Side is the expansion of the city bike into the district, currently up to 86th Street and further into up to 130th Street by 2018. And just looking at our most recent city bike data, we can see that 29% of city bike trips that were taken in the network started in CB7 and they also ended in CB7. So a lot of people are doing local trips within the district, doing local shopping trips, moving around, getting to and from their homes. And it's also a popular route for cyclists coming from Midtown. 45% of city bike trips that began in Midtown ended in CB7. So people are traveling from the core north into the district via city bike. And just looking at bike volumes in general and comparing that to Columbus Avenue, since 2007, we've seen a threefold increase in cycling on Amsterdam, and that's without a protected facility. On Columbus Avenue, we've seen volumes double. So, and the volumes are around the same. We have a bit more on Columbus, but on Amsterdam, we have 600 cyclists that are already cycling without a network in place. Amsterdam, as you know, has some safety issues over the past 5 years. We've seen several severe injuries, 16 severe injuries for pedestrians, 2 fatalities, 1 vehicular and 1 pedestrian, making it a 8.9 KSI per mile for pedestrians and 19.7 for all users. You can see that on this diagram, sort of the two-way crosstowns get the bulk of the injuries, and it's not as high as some corridors, but it does have, certainly does have a lot of safety issues to be addressed. So moving into design, the existing issues can be summed up with looking at speeding. There's 59% of vehicles that are speeding during the off-peak hours. Long crossing distances, high peak vehicle volumes. The current design encourages bad driver behavior. It's sort of, I think as someone I saw in the paper the other day said, it's sort of the old DOT design. A lot of things haven't been thought. Amsterdam hasn't been put through the rigorous DOT toolkit as other corridors in the neighborhood has, and it's sort of time for an update. And what we generally like to do is take those 4 to 3 skip lines that are painted on the road and turn them into parking lane stripes and turn lanes and organize traffic in a way that lets drivers know where they're supposed to be, lets pedestrians and cyclists know where they're supposed to be, discouraging bad behavior, helping clarify and make the roadway more efficient. And then it's not designed to a neighborhood scale. With those 3 or 4 skip lines that are out there right now, it feels more like a highway than a local neighborhood street. And these are all things that we took into consideration when we were developing our proposal. So we would like to take a look at the Amsterdam north of 72nd. We would like to install our typical protected bike lane, parking protected bike lane with pedestrian safety islands along the corridor. The protected lane comes with curbside protected curbside bicycle facility, pedestrian safety islands, some which will have street trees, a lane reduction. So right now there's 4 through full-time travel lanes. We'll reduce it to 3 full through travel lanes with a left turn bay. So even though the through lanes are being reduced, we're actually keeping the 4th lane for turns, which generally they are used for now. And then we want to update curb regulations, which I'll discuss in a minute. So basically keeping the same lane widths that exist, and then just addressing the west side of the street with pedestrian and bicycle amenities. And this is just a view from above and what it would look like similar to what's on Columbus Avenue. So with the pedestrian islands, we get reduced crossing distances for people moving around the neighborhood. The neighborhood scale design comes with street trees and a sort of more organized roadway, less highway-like roadway. The bicycle lane is protected from traffic. And then off peak, when the volumes are low, the sort of narrower neighborhood scale street helps to calm traffic moving up the corridor. And in general, we've seen that this type of treatment on our Manhattan avenues has great safety benefits for all users, and this is something to keep in mind as we keep the discussion going. In a recent analysis of our Manhattan corridors, where we had 3 years of before and after data, we see that on average, crashes with injuries are reduced by 17% for all users, and the injuries for motor vehicle occupants, pedestrians, cyclists, all are reduced by this. And that comes with the calming, the organization of the street, the pedestrian benefits, the protection of the cyclist. All of it together creates a sort of complete picture of safety for all users on the corridor. And that is something that we heard time and time again for Amsterdam Avenue, how we had to address the needs of all users. So how do we make this work? Amsterdam Avenue has, like I mentioned, a lot of a high amount of traffic volume, people leaving Midtown, going up to the Henry Hudson, or just coming into the neighborhood. And this is sort of the study that we did. We looked at the existing volumes and how the road functions with those existing volumes. You can see our sort of key points from 77th to 96th Street. The volume builds as you go up toward 96 as north of 96, the volume drops as people have made their way west to the Henry Hudson. And then just looking at those numbers in relation to the road, we can see that sort of the vehicle to capacity ratio also decreases as we move up the corridor. So a 1 for vehicle to capacity ratio means that the road is at capacity, you can't handle any more vehicles. So we're approaching that at 96th Street. And so when you think about the existing condition, that's 4 lanes of traffic, it has a very good signal progression on the corridor. But how can we then sort of reduce that capacity and still make this work if we're approaching 0.9 toward the north? And a lot of that comes with the left turn benefits and some of the other things that I'm going to discuss. Just 2 sort of pictures, one toward the north and one toward the south. You can see the daily traffic volume on the corridor. You have a morning peak going northbound around 8 a.m. Up around 96th Street, and then your PM peak, and that's the area that we really need to focus on, and that's when some of the impacts might be felt is in these couple hours in the PM. To the south, the numbers are lower, so here we're reaching about 1550 in the peak. To the south, reaching about 1300. It's the same peak, it's the same sort of wave with that morning AM consideration and then the PM spike. One thing we found while we were looking at this traffic data is that a lot of the volume in the network on Amsterdam Avenue and in CB7 is actually taxis. We have a very good set of taxi data now, and we like to use that as much as possible. And in looking at Amsterdam and CB7's network, we found that between 4 and 7 p.m. on weekdays, there's approximately 16,000 yellow cab trips that start or end in CB7. So 16,000 trips over a 3-hour period that are starting and ending in the district. That's a lot of trips. 50% of those trips are less than 1.5 miles. So these trips are very local. People are taking half of the trips are either within that 1.5 mile radius. 44% of the trips are wholly within CB7. So people just traveling within the district, not leaving it, taking a taxi from one end to the other, from one block to another. That's about that. Yeah, they both start and end in the district. And 32% of afternoon traffic on Amsterdam Avenue is taxis. That's approximately 400 per hour. So in that sort of high period in the midday that we saw, 400 of those vehicles are actually taxis traveling through the district. So we feel that with City Bike coming to the area and those numbers rising that we saw earlier in the presentation, that there is a big potential for the protected lane to shift the trips from taxis to City Bike. And that's one key portion to this project. So that's one key portion of the project that we couldn't really get to before because we didn't have this system in place, this bike share system in place to help some people shift their trips out of taxis, many of which are within the district, many of which are in a bikeable 1.5 mile radius, shifting out of taxis into cyclists. That helps us have a more realistic and more favorable traffic analysis. And then we have our mixing zones and our turn treatments, which creates that fourth lane at the turning locations on the corridor. So we have the two types of treatments. I'll talk through them now for people who aren't familiar with them. On the non-major crosstown streets, we have a mixing zone, which has the cyclists and the turning vehicles work together to make their lefts, and the cyclists either go left or through the intersection. It improves visibility of the cyclist. It provides space to negotiate conflict as the bike facility turns to a shared space, and the vehicles are asked to yield as they enter the zone. It removes the left turns from the through lanes, which is a huge part of keeping those three remaining lanes functional and efficiently moving up the corridor. And it creates left turn vehicle storage. So vehicles that were already storing in this left fourth lane now have a bay and an area to wait out of the way of the through traffic. On our two-way crosstown streets, 79th, 86, and 96, we have a more robust treatment. It's a full left turn lane with the bike facility going to the crosswalk. It also includes queue space for the turning vehicles, moving them out of the lanes of through traffic. It brings the bikes right up to the crosswalk, as I mentioned. And we're able to put in a split phase signal timing. So what that does, it does a couple things actually. One, mainly for pedestrian and cyclists, it gives them a head start before the left turners begin their turn. So we hold the left turns while the throughs start their movement. We hold the left turns and allow the bikes and the pedestrians to get a head start. What that also does is it allows us to give those 7 seconds or so back to the through vehicles. So we're able to give 23% more green time, up to 23% more green time to the through movement. So if you were driving up Amsterdam right now, you'll notice, like I said at the beginning, it's a really favorable progression for northbound traffic. As you get in your pod of vehicles, you're all moving, and if you move at a good at the speed limit or below, you'll hit those greens and you'll get up the corridor. But when you get to these crosstowns, sometimes there's a hiccup in that progression. With these treatments, we're able to give that 7 seconds back to the through and put it more in line with the overall progression, helping move the traffic through some of the pain points that might exist now. And that's really key to keeping Amsterdam flowing with this design. And then again, in addition, it's great for the pedestrians and cyclists. And then the next piece is the curbside usage. Like I mentioned at the beginning, Amsterdam is a local commercial corridor. It has a lot of businesses up and down the street, and those businesses right now do not have appropriate loading zones. There's some loading zones on the corridor, but for the majority of the street, it's a 1-hour metered parking from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's some no parking zones for churches and funeral homes, but mostly it's at this 1-hour metered parking, which requires businesses who are getting deliveries to have their trucks parked in the moving lane for the most part as they're taken up by a parked vehicle. So we're proposing to install a paved commercial regulation along the east curb of Amsterdam, so that's on the opposite side of the bike facility, from 72nd to 96th Street between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays, and then on select locations on the west curb where needed, like where there's Dwayne Reed and other big facilities that need loading. This allows us to maximize curb space available for trucks loading, unloading. It helps get businesses access these trucks, helps the trucks not have to go through parked cars to get to the businesses. It reduces the likelihood of trucks double parking during peak travel times, and that's, again, key to keeping the corridor moving for us. We want to keep those 3 lanes moving, and to do that, we can't have them blocked by double parked trucks. And this commercial reg will help that. It's not going to solve all of the double parking, but it's going to help get the trucks out of the moving lane, processing the traffic more efficiently. So overall, we are looking to create this protected bicycle facility and hoping to keep 3 through lanes that process efficiently for northbound Amsterdam. We could do this by organizing the traffic into the through, turns, and proper loading zones, and really help the signal progression become even more efficient than it already is. And this is our proposed analysis. This is what we think the roadway will look like with all of these mitigations in place, as well as the bike facility. So you can see at 96th and 79th Street, where there are current LPIs, where the leading pedestrian intervals are holding all of the through traffic, we get major gains in the VC ratio, the volume to capacity ratio. And then the worst part is still at 96th Street, but it's no higher than what we already have at 96. The reason 86 doesn't improve is because it doesn't currently have an LPI, so we would be introducing a new sort of signal timing at that location. So overall, we're not getting to 1, which was the thing we need to avoid with this proposal, and for the most part, we're staying within our acceptable range of VC ratio. And the sort of the main drawback that we see, or the main point of discussion that we want to have tonight and for consideration, is the parking. Like I said, on the east curb, we're going to be doing these loading regulations that are going to be really good for the businesses as well as traffic. The left turn lanes and the islands do reduce traffic or reduce overall parking spaces on the corridor by 25%. So those parking spots would be lost to get the safety benefits and of the left turn lanes, and to allow us to move the turning traffic out of the way of through vehicles. So Amsterdam Avenue is our preferred northbound route, and we do think that it will work if we do this proposal, and we're very excited about it. However, it does come with the parking considerations and some vehicle VC ratio reductions at 86th Street. And at the request of the community, and keeping some of those things in mind, we did study potential alternatives on nearby Broadway and Columbus that I just want to run through with you now. And just a quick note that any alternative bike route would be paired with pedestrian improvements on Amsterdam to create a safer corridor without the bike facilities. So we do want to make sure that whatever we end up doing, that Amsterdam is getting treated for the Upper West Side, for safety in the Upper West Side. Looking at Broadway, north of 73rd, we looked at putting in a median side protected bike facility. That facility would have minor traffic impact. We would remove a lane to do it. The volumes on Broadway are much lower than on Amsterdam. We don't necessarily need the 3 lanes. There are pinch points like at 95th to 97th Street that any facility would have to, any design would have to be worked out. We probably need to do some creative parking swaps and shared route through that intersection. And then we would have to investigate a new left turn design. We're not exactly sure how the turns would happen over the median yet, so if we were to investigate this further, we'd have to work out the pinch point there and then just sort of the design at the left turns at the median. Additionally, we would really want to focus on a northbound route. The southbound route would be a little more difficult because the volumes on southbound are higher, so we wouldn't push for a southbound pair on Broadway at the same time because of volumes approaching the bow tie at 72nd Street. And then we looked at Columbus, and we know there's a lot of people who cycle the wrong way on Columbus already. Hopefully a lot of them will move to Amsterdam with a new protected route. But we do have room to actually convert it to a two-way path. That would, of course, not require any change to vehicle capacity, but it would be a bit of a learning curve for the users, both cyclists and pedestrians on the corridor. It's a heavily pedestrian area. There's people that parking turnover is heavy, so people would be crossing the facility. And it would require a bunch of infrastructure upgrades at the intersections for cyclists and vehicles to interact at those locations. So we have the room, we know people are doing it, the desire is there, but it does present its own challenges. So if we were asked to flesh that out more, it would, again, we'd have to work through some of these things. So just to sum up again, Amsterdam Avenue is our preferred route. The protected lane provides this northbound pair to Columbus Avenue. We're reducing pedestrian crossing distances with the islands, designing for a neighborhood street with safety benefits expected for all users, as we've seen on all of our other protected paths in Manhattan. It would require a lane reduction with the left turn treatments to ensure that the turns are moved out of the three efficient lanes. The high peak hour volumes require some adjustments, including the parking regulations and the paid commercial. We have seen that through all of these things, the traffic will be maintained, and connections while we work out the southern section can be made via Central Park West and the crosstown routes in the 70s and 90s. So tonight, again, we're here to listen for specifically on the phase 1 route, everything that I've discussed. We want to then incorporate the feedback into our plan and come back to the board for support in the coming months with any changes incorporated. And then we would want to start implementing this in spring of 2016. It's nearly 2 miles of protected lanes and new infrastructure. So that is a very large project, which is another reason why we really need to focus on what we know we can do right now. We need to get it started soon in the season. We have 2 miles of lanes and infrastructure to install. It probably will take an entire construction season to get that in place. Thinking about phase 2, south of 72nd, we want to gather feedback and then develop the proposals. Again, feedback starting now if that comes to it. Consider various network connections, coordinate with the capital project starting in June. Complete the improvements at the Columbus Broadway bow tie, which are going in right now. We want to give those time to settle. Before we hit the back door of Lincoln Center, we want to finish the front door of Lincoln Center. Let that settle in. And then just determine how we get the bike facility through the intersection of 71st Amsterdam and Broadway. So that's the plan, that's the data, and I guess we'll turn it over back to
outset of the meeting, we are going to open this up for statements and questions of fact first. I'd like to ask everyone to please make their way, if they have a question of fact, towards the middle aisle, and I'll call on you. Shelley and Penny have green sheets of paper for people who would like to provide comments. That will take place after the questions of fact are asked. So with that in mind, and we are limiting remarks to 1 minute for both of the questions and for the statements. Please fill out the green sheets now. We'll come and pick them up in just a few minutes after all the questions are out of the way. So we'll start with you.
My name is Reed Ruby, and I have a question. On a typical left-hand street, the bikes and the cars stop. Do they stop? How far behind the crosswalk? And does the bike and the car stop at the same location? You said for a major cross street, the bike lane would go all the way to the crosswalk. The second question is, what's the signal phasing? On 26th and 2nd Avenue, there's a yellow flashing light for a car turning left when the bicycle light turns green, and I like that. What's your plan for here?
So, the design would be the design would be similar to what we have at 26th and 2nd. So at the major two-way crossing, we would have a bike signal as well as the flashing yellow arrow. So the bikes and the peds will get the green to go, and then when the left turning vehicles get a red arrow. And then after 7 seconds or so, the red arrow turns to a flashing yellow, so cars know to move slowly through the intersection while they're turning, and the bikes and peds continue to move.
That's at a street or that's at a major cross street or every cross street? Where
At a major cross street, at the two-way crossing.
When there's just a regular cross street, just a small cross street, what's the signals for bikes and cars?
So the bikes and cars get a green at the same time with the pedestrians. Same as any intersection on the corridor, no special treatments. We have the mixing zone for the negotiation of the vehicles and the bikes through the intersection.
Will the bikes be further towards the crosswalk?
One question each, please.
Oh, yeah. It's very similar to what you see on Columbus right now.
My name is Brian. I live at the corner of 97th in Amsterdam, where Ariel Russo was tragically killed on the sidewalk a couple of years ago. I have a two-part question. One is related to the loading zones. Have you considered putting them on the side street nearest to a business on Amsterdam, so there wouldn't be any loading across the bike lane? For example, most of the Dwayne Reed I know is at the corner, and it would be much better for people using the bike lane if the loading zone is there and on other cross streets.
Yeah, so side streets, we haven't specifically looked at where we would do that and what locations would need it, but that's not out of the question.
And also, related to cars going onto the sidewalk, have you considered putting in bollards to protect people like Ariel Russo? There's certain intersections where there are more injuries and fatalities. We use bollards to protect telephone booths and phone booths and fire hydrants. Why not people?
Yeah, that's a I don't think we intend on putting bollards on the sidewalk for that purpose.
Well, I mean, in certain corners, I think you should seriously consider that. It's because there have been a number of instances of cars driving onto the sidewalk in recent days.
And just on the loading zones, what we'll do as we go forward is meet with larger businesses and institutions and talk with them about their hours of deliveries and their needs. And we do like to examine the side streets whenever possible to get some of that activity.
Hi, my name is Matt. Thanks so much for your thought and time here. So I have a two-part question. It's the way to cheat, I guess, here. So is the entirety of the east side of Amsterdam going to be a unloading zone? And then, relatedly, have you studied the environmental impact of having loading and unloading in such a concentrated area as far as pollution and that sort of thing?
We are proposing up to 96th Street to be a 7-to-7 loading zone on the east side, with some loading zones on the west side as well. And then I think the loading is currently happening on the street, so we're providing the space for them to do that along the curb.
So you haven't studied the impact of the exhaust fumes and that sort of thing?
No, and I think by keeping the double parked vehicles out of the moving lane, we can keep the other vehicles moving more efficiently.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Julia Kite, and I live on Riverside Drive, and I'm a recreational cyclist who's never run the red light. So looking at your figures here for KSIs, and looking at the percentages you gave for decreases in injuries and deaths when bike lanes are put in, to me, this seems like it's really an issue of weighing a loss of parking versus a loss of life. And I was wondering if the DOT can the DOT commit that when the final plans are made for Amsterdam Avenue's redesign, that parking will not be a deal breaker in terms of whether we get a bike lane?
We are very committed to making safety improvements on Amsterdam Avenue, end of story. And we have also the commitment of this community board and the greater community. So we're going to work through all of these issues and make Amsterdam Avenue greater and safer.
Hi, my name is David Fell. The mother of all loading zones is the Beacon Theater. There must be some special plan. It's not only a loading zone, but sometimes they have a tent actually in the back.
So we will have discussions with them, but we do have other locations in the city that have a similar load in and load out that we do deal with. So you had described one yesterday. They would have to get permits, and we'd have to work with them to see how it would interact with the facility, and definitely have that discussion. So we are aware that is a discussion that needs to be had.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Gary. I'm the Chief Executive of Plaza Jewish Community Chapel, located on 91st in Amsterdam. I appreciate all the effort that has gone into this plan. My great concern is that I have 40,000 people that come in and out of our chapel on a yearly basis. Families that need to be served appropriately. My greatest concern is the bike path. How do families access their limousines? With bikers, flying through.
Let the speaker answer your question.
What's going on there? So my concern is that this needs to be addressed to small businesses along Amsterdam. And while you said that you are going to talk to all the small businesses, I just wanted to let you know that this was of concern to us, and we will work with you in whatever way we can, but please be sensitive to our needs.
Okay. Yes, we will, let's discuss.
Can I just make sure everyone heard that we're talking about a funeral home, and that's why she's talking about limousines?
My name is Hila. I live on 76th Street in Amsterdam. Hila, yeah. And to me, your plan is a no-brainer. Let's vote for it. I'm voting. I'm one of those people who's taking a bike now, city bike, instead of a taxi. I've done that quite a few times. But my question is, so we're working with a big city thing. Why don't we just reduce traffic altogether with the congested pricing that we're talking about, and then we won't have to worry about it?
I think right now we're here to address Amsterdam. So I think
Hello, my name is Martin Wallace. I actually wear a lot of hats. I sit on the BS 84 PTA. I also sit on the CB9 Transportation Committee. And I live up in CB9, but I bike with my son sometimes down to BS 84. And one of our challenges is how do we get back up to CB9? Now, I noticed in phase 2, you plan to come and address south of 72nd. But my question is, do you also have plans, especially considering that City Bike at some point is going to wind up in our community board? Have you considered what connections you're going to be making north of 110th? And if so, is that also going to be part of your phase 2? Because we would like to, we we have a limited network out there, and we need to know what's going to happen to all of the cyclists once they get to 110th Street.
Yeah, so as everyone knows, north of 110th Street, the profile of Amsterdam Avenue changes. It is not part of this project's phase 2, but it is being currently studied on a separate track. So we will be looking to the north.
Good afternoon. My name is Lourdes Camacho. I live in Amsterdam Houses, 70 Amsterdam Avenue. My concern is you need to fix the problem we have right now on Amsterdam and 63rd Street. I have a picture right here. It's Lincoln Center, corner of 63rd and Amsterdam. Residents there in the area, as well as some of you here, I'm pretty sure, use that tunnel to go into the train. And cars be coming out of that exit and not even paying attention to the light. So I propose you fix that problem before you start creating more problems. Thank you.
And I can also give you my card, or Josh can give you his, and we can work with you separately on that as well.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm Susan Crawford. I live at 110th and Amsterdam, where there is that switch over, and I can tell you if you stop the bike lane there, they will just get all woven around the traffic that is all jumbled up by the constriction of lanes that are currently up there since they've been reduced from 2 lanes each way to 1 lane each way on 110th Street. I just wrote to Ms. Fortunately about it to follow up with you. My immediate question is, you mentioned that Amsterdam feels more like a highway than a neighborhood street, and Amsterdam and Columbus are designated truck routes, so there's a reason they feel that way. And so my question to you is, what plans do you have for the trucks? Because everything we buy on Manhattan comes on a truck, and those are the routes they have to take. And you didn't mention West End Avenue, but I saw something in the local press from last summer that DOT wasn't considering West End Avenue because a green awning neighborhood would not appreciate it. And I would just say that's the perfect route because it's a quiet street. It's got so much painted in already. I don't see why you don't look at that route instead. And also Central Park. Central Park, since the Columbus lane was installed, Central Park is now north-south, exact same 2.5 miles you're talking about.
Hi, my name is Steve. I don't understand, you basically said in your presentation that northbound Broadway was probably the least invasive, least traffic northbound street. And it would make sense, since all of this traffic uptown is funneled onto Amsterdam Avenue, that you would separate the cyclists rather than try and combine them. I agree that safety issues on Amsterdam Avenue need to be addressed, but to me, common logic, Broadway northbound would be the best place for the bike route. I also don't understand why you wouldn't consult all businesses, only large businesses. Small businesses are really what make a neighborhood a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're just dismissing them.
No, that's, we actually have a team of street ambassadors that have been hitting the street, talking to small businesses, going to talk to the people on the street, getting their feedback. We're incorporating and telling that information now, but we've been out there. It's a team of 10 multilingual outreach ambassadors that have been talking to everyone on the corridor. So
That's
information is coming
interesting.
in.
I have a small business and no one has approached me, but the picture of my store is on the brochure they sent out about this meeting.
What's your business?
More and more antiques.
Okay.
We're there 7 days a week, no one has ever approached us. But in your
I'm not making it up.
presentation, you said you were going to talk to large businesses.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to just brush aside the small businesses. We do outreach to all of the businesses, and we're happy to meet with you and understand your needs and your loading needs and walk the street with you. We do that with everybody who would like to, and we do that with the majority of businesses. We can't reach each and every business. Some of them do not engage, but we will attempt to do so.
But why aren't you considering Broadway?
Your minutes out, 1 minute. Hey, get up! Let the board do that job. Don't interrupt everybody.
Let's keep this to questions of facts if we can.
Go ahead, sir, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Alex Medvedev, and I live in 106 in Amsterdam. In your consideration of additional possibilities of bike routes north, why was not Central Park West considered a bike route? Because it doesn't have the bow tie problem, it doesn't have the loading problems, it doesn't have the conflict with the commercial street, and it would be a perfect bike route because you can extend it up 8th Avenue north for future expansion. And it's not been in your presentation at all.
Right, we actually have looked at Central Park West several times over the past couple of years. We get excited every time we open that bag, and then we immediately remember why we can't do it, which is that there's not a lot of room. Central Park West isn't wide enough to handle the amount of traffic that it has, plus protected the changes we would need to make for a protected bike facility. Amsterdam is more central to the neighborhood anyway, so we thought that was important. Central Park West does have that northbound route, but unfortunately there isn't the space that we would need to do a good protected route on that corridor.
The Prospect Park has that built now in the same amount of space.
Prospect Park has different traffic needs, different traffic volumes. It doesn't have the transverses. It doesn't, yeah, and it's one way. That is the main difference.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brad Taylor. I'm also on Community Board 9. I live a little bit north of this proposal, but I just wanted to say that I'm so glad that people have brought up the north end of this, because I would encourage you to think holistically about this area. We really need some help with north-south bike travel, but we need it to extend beyond 110th Street. And as someone else pointed out, when this lane gets to 110th Street, you've got a real problem there. You got two-way traffic, and for me, I want to go 116th Street. That's going to be a nightmare getting through that intersection. You've got a lot of biking happening on Morningside Drive, as you probably already know. We need a holistic plan that addresses the north-south bike traffic. Thank you very much.
Just a reminder to folks, these are questions of fact we'd like people to be asking now, so please keep your comments to questions. There'll be plenty of time for comments after the questions are asked.
Richard Barr, and you mentioned the commercial parking, the loading zone parking on the east or non-bike side of Columbus Avenue, out to Amsterdam Avenue would eliminate truck double parking, and then made some reference to some commercial parking on the west or bike lane side, and as if that would also eliminate. How would that eliminate truck double parking if they have to park outside of the island protecting the bike lane? I mean, I live on Amsterdam between 86th and 87th on the west side, which has a loading zone already for two enormous trucks from CB7 and PC Richards. And if they had to park outside of a bike lane, they'd be halfway into the middle of Amsterdam.
So the part we
and just to the finally, lane. Just one last thing. Somebody said maybe you could have the trucks unloading on the side streets. Those trucks are much too big to unload on the side street, particularly in the morning when there's alternate side and cars are double parked, to let the sweeper.
Yeah, we would definitely take that into account and on any side street we looked at. On the west curb, you would have the bike lane with a buffer and then a traditional sized parking lane. So trucks can fit in that parking lane without having to be in the moving lane. And that sounds like a location that we would keep the loading regs for those businesses. On the west side.
They would be up to the curb, or they would be all the way out?
It would be in a parking lane. So you have bike lane, then parking lane, then moving lane.
Like on Columbus.
Yeah, similar to Columbus.
Good evening, my name is Roger Schwade. I'm a lifelong Manhattan resident, I live on 106 Broadway. I own a car, but I own multiple bikes, so I come at this from many directions. My question is, have you thought, first of all, I commend you for trying to bring together all these different viewpoints. It's a thankless task, and no matter what you do, you're going to anger some people. Have you thought about, or are you working with the police department to prioritize enforcement actions to make this as successful as possible? So, for example, Are they moving double parked trucks? For example, enforcing red lights with bicyclists, they should enforce bikes that blow through the red lights as opposed to the bikes that stop, yield, and then go through the red lights. They should ticket bicyclists that go the wrong way. Those are the dangerous things that happen. But when they ticket people for every traffic infraction, they lose the respect of both sides. They should ticket bicyclists in the right lane when there's a protected bike lane, because it's annoying to lose another traffic lane if you're a driver, but not if they're trying to do a right turn or something. So
There's a question in there somewhere, right?
it was there that I rambled. But the question was working with the police department to prioritize enforcement actions to make this successful.
Yes.
You need context.
We work with PD on a lot of these issues. We have monthly meetings with them to bring up specifically areas that are new, things that are coming. So when this project's going in, we'll definitely work closely with them. Yeah.
And just to add, and we can talk about this at a future meeting or bring PD here. PD has issued more cyclist violations than they've ever have before over the last year or two. They've really stepped up enforcement for wrong-way cycling, running reds, sidewalk cycling. So they've been very responsive to us and to the community's request for that.
My name is Bob Botfeld, and my question is about, you mentioned that to make this work, we need a lot of people to convert from taxi cabs to city bikes or bicyclists in order to make the traffic volume work. Well, since people use taxis, it seems for a lot of other reasons and different reasons, there are different population. People, elderly, people with friends, people carrying packages, people who are well-dressed. What evidence do you have that people would actually convert from taxis to bikes for these short trips?
So in our model, we actually didn't pull out a lot. It was about 2% of the overall taxi trips that you're seeing. So it's a very small number that we expect to shift. And I think the evidence is that, or why we feel we can expect that, is that the trips that are being made are short, they're local, they're in the neighborhood. Those things overall, it's for people who are able to do it, it's more cost efficient to take those trips on a city bike. And so we do know that people will shift those trips. Not a lot, it's not for everybody, but enough to really make this plan work.
2%, but you're saying 2% is what you anticipate?
That's what we're starting with, but we don't have exact figures.
I'm Kathy Muncino, and I live on 97th Street at Central Park West. It's a safety question, really. Since the Columbus Avenue bike lanes have been installed, the rush hour traffic in the morning on Columbus Avenue we are a super block from 97th to 100th Street. Therefore, the traffic is heavily concentrated on 97th Street and 100th Street because there are no side streets to dilute the traffic. So we have tremendous congestion problems, and in addition to that, high-rise buildings have been imposed in our neighborhood, and big chain stores also. So we suddenly have tremendous overdevelopment. Rush hour, the congestion on Columbus Avenue since the bike lane is so tremendous in the morning that cars have come across 100th Street to go south on Central Park West. So now we have congestion on Central Park West in the morning rush hour. The result of all this is that fire engines and ambulances can't go south anymore on Columbus Avenue at that point. And they can't go, I'll get to my question. It's a safety issue, please. This is so offensive. I really find these people very offensive. Ambulances and fire engines cannot proceed south now on Central Park West. So in order to go south, they use the northbound lane on Central Park West in morning rush hours, sirens blaring. The new normal is ambulances and fire engines go south on Central Park West in the northbound lane. So the question is, can you please address our safety issue? I don't know how you're going to do it if you impose a bike lane on Amsterdam. The congestion will be even greater in our superblocks. And we already have delayed first responders. We think we're going to be at greater risk. That's my question. What do you think you can do?
Yeah, so we've been assessing the parking regulations on Columbus Avenue start since the beginning of the summer. We have noticed some areas of congestion, and we've been targeting and adding new loading regulations to try to help move that double parking out of the corridor, so we can definitely look at this super block from 97 to 100 to try to keep traffic moving on Columbus.
I don't know how you're going to do it if you put a bike lane on Amsterdam. We think it's impossible. It takes an ambulance now on 97th Street to go from Columbus Avenue to Amsterdam Avenue, 3 traffic lights to go that 1 block. So please pay closer attention to it than you have. We've been complaining about this for over a year.
Next question.
Margaret Neuer, I live on West 96th Street. Neuer. As a pedestrian, a cyclist, and a driver, I'm very excited about the safety improvements that you're planning to make here. But when I'm biking, very often I'm coming from Midtown. So the second phase is of very high interest to me, and I'm hoping you can address when we can expect that to happen.
Yeah, so we are starting, we've already started thinking about it. The timeline isn't set out. We are going to continue the discussions from today on forward. The timeline can be faster than you expect, but we really want to focus on phase 1 and get this in while we discuss phase 2.
John Simpson, West 87th Street. Margaret just addressed my question on phase 2, but considering that 12 people have been hit and killed by motor vehicles since Halloween, including several who were on the sidewalk, what is the DOT going to do on this corridor and on other corridors in the neighborhood to prevent speeding? Speeding is the cause of most fatalities to pedestrians in these crashes. And Amsterdam Avenue, I have observed speed limits while riding in a taxi, while walking along Amsterdam Avenue, exceeding 40 miles an hour with the speed limit of 25. What is DOT planning on doing to make sure that we aren't getting run over and killed like 12 people were this week?
So we definitely recognize, and I said it at the beginning, that there is currently a speeding issue on Amsterdam Avenue. We find that when we install these comprehensive treatments, that it does help to slow speeding on the corridor as it organizes traffic. It visually narrows the street. It makes it more of a neighborhood commerce street that helps bring that speeding problem into check, and of course, working with PD on that enforcement. But we have found speeding to go down after these projects have been installed.
Thank you, sir. My name's Cullen Johnson from West 76th Street. Got a little cold, sorry. I've got a question. I have to go back to Columbus to direct my question about Amsterdam Avenue. If you add dive lanes to Amsterdam Avenue, I know the police are doing all they can do with ticketing and such, but what are your plans for controlling the absolute chaos that's already on Columbus Avenue with bikes going the wrong way north on Columbus? There's signs up that the DOT has put up, yes, on every intersection, but nobody reads them, and it's delivering people, private pedestrians, et cetera, et cetera. They up, down, and an older couple that is not new to the city is going to look like, oh, nobody's coming there, they're going to get whacked. What are your plans on Amsterdam Avenue to prevent these bikes from going the wrong way, conversely, down the bike lane on Amsterdam Avenue, and really making a very concerted effort to make this safe, because it's a serious problem?
So hopefully by creating a protected route on Amsterdam Avenue, we can divert people who want to travel northbound to that route, and then really thinking about the connections to the south and how to get them northbound there. So we hope to reduce the number of people doing that in Columbus by drawing them to Amsterdam.
And of course, enforcement doesn't hurt. Yeah, but how are you going to enforce it if they don't get the laws?
That's PD's role.
Yeah.
Next question.
Hi, Selena Armstrong, West 64th Street, landscape architect and urban designer, so I cycle as much as I can, and I used to always go over to Central Park West because it seemed to be the safest, but it's not because of all the buses and trucks that double park. And so I started going up Amsterdam, in spite of the bow tie, which is actually not that challenging to traverse. It's quite fun, but it's actually a lot safer than you thought because of what DOT has done with all the bump outs. And despite the fact that I got hit by a car last weekend from a parallel parker, like a parallel parker came out and like smushed me against another car, which wouldn't have happened on Columbus, I still ride Amsterdam because it's the best street for a bike lane, and we will get a bike lane there. My question for you is, on Amsterdam, it seems that after the bike lane came in, the businesses are more successful, and you see more outdoor cafes, and it's more enjoyable to be there. Has there been any study? I'm so sorry, Columbus Avenue, where there's already a bike lane, it seems to be that the businesses are more successful, or it's a more complete street. Have there been any studies about the success of the businesses since a street bike lane went in to then help you guys make a case for why we should have bike lanes and safer corridors?
On our website, we have a economic impact study that looked at several corridors in the city before and after we put these facilities, bus lanes, bike lanes, pedestrian improvements, and in general, we've seen in that study, which you can find on our website, definite improvement for business.
Bids also would be great people to talk to about that, because I think they know sort of the impact.
Yeah, I know for Columbus, we actually did a lot of before and after with that bid, and I think.
Yeah, great.
Hi, I'm Nathan Hunt. I live on 98th and West End Avenue, and I own a business on 85th and 84th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. Your fellows did come to my business and asked me, so I got the questionnaire. So for that antique guy, I'm sorry I didn't get to you. One of the questions that you guys asked me was about delivery times, and I think that, have you looked, the data offered you that the 7 p.m. might be too late? Because all these, the majority of the deliveries that come to me and all the other businesses oftentimes are union guys, and their last deliveries we get are 3, 4 in the afternoon. So I think you can shorten that time period up quite a bit, and I was wondering if that, if the data has supported my thought.
Yeah, so that's part of the questionnaire, and that's something that we will take into account when we come back. We can either refine the hours that we're looking at, but we haven't decided how we're going to go with that yet.
I have one last question. Have you also considered changing the crosstown buses on 86th Street and 96th Street from the west side of the avenue to the east side of the avenue on Amsterdam and Columbus Avenue? That creates a big traffic jam, especially for cars that are turning. I don't know if I've conveyed that.
So taking the stops from the near side of the intersection to the far side.
Correct. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. There are some safety concerns about where you let people off. We want them to be more likely to cross at the crosswalk in front of the bus, so they're highly visible. So I don't know that we would be able to consider that, but we're happy to talk about it.
Hi, my name is Abner May. First of all, thank you so much. This plan looks amazing to me. I live on 97th in Columbus. I'm a biker. Right now, primarily recreational. I used to be more of a commuter biker. I got in an accident with a bus going crosstown, which was very scary. My question is about kind of east-west options as part of this. This summer, I was working in Chelsea, and it was I had to go east to get to the Henry Hudson Greenway on the west, and then I had to cut several avenues over down in Midtown. And I guess this looks awesome north-south. I was wondering if there's any plan for any kind of more friendly bike options going east-west.
On the Upper West Side, we haven't talked about that yet. Something we can consider as we build out the bike network.
Great, thank you. I guess pavement quality is also a really big concern of mine going east-west. Yeah, so getting to the Greenway on 97th Street, for example, it's really a disaster, and it's very scary with cabs coming behind me. Anyway, thank you very much for this plan, I appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Avram Tom, and I live on 89th Street. First, thank you for the plan, it looks great. You said that even if the bike lane moves off Amsterdam, there would still be pedestrian safety improvements on Amsterdam. So people understand in that trade-off that it's not 25% parking versus 0% parking. What's the expected parking loss on Amsterdam for the pedestrian safety changes alone?
We haven't done the exact calculation, but a design that we're leaning toward is similar to what we've done on 3rd Avenue in the 50s and 60s. Large neck downs, turn lanes, things like that. So there would be minor parking loss, but it wouldn't be as
5%, 10%?
I'm not sure.
Hi, my name is Jay Murray, and I'd like to invite both of you to meet with me whenever it's convenient for you on Columbus Avenue and 93rd Street. Several members of the committee has been there, and the pictures you're showing has nothing to do with the way we're living. It really doesn't. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to do that. You were very kind to get me the no idling sign, and I truly, truly appreciate it. But you really need to see how we're living, and it's not nice. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Norm LaFond. I live at 100th Street, Central Park West, and I have a technical question. At the intersection of 96th Street, you had a 0.91 utilization rate currently. Then under your revised plan, and with the improvements, you're going to have a 78% utilization rate, but you have a reduction of 25% in the lanes. That would require that each lane remaining, those three, would have to have roughly a 36% increase in throughput to be able to handle that. So could you explain to me exactly how that's going to take place? Now, I'm not trying to load that question to mock you. I just want you to explain it to me as to how it would work.
Yeah, so the main way we're able to improve the capacity ratio at that intersection is by the split phase LPI treatments that we've been doing around the city. That allows us to return the seconds that are lost during the current leading pedestrian phase, which is generally around 7 seconds, to the throughput of the vehicles. So by returning that 7 seconds to the northbound traffic, they are able to process on the favorable progression through the intersection, requiring or lowering the necessary capacity needed to handle that volume. The left turners still are held for those 7 seconds, but they're currently held for that time. So it doesn't change the operation necessarily for those vehicles, but it does help the overall throughput of the intersection.
Is the traffic symmetric north-south? You know,
right. The volumes are similar.
All right, thank you. Did you run us, was it done with the simulation? Was that way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Deborah McKean, and I live on West 79th Street between Columbus Avenue and Amsterdam. And I'm wondering if you've done any studies to determine for motorists how long it would take to get from point A to point B. I know there was a well-publicized study over the summer by Channel 7 News, and initially when the city devised the bike lanes for Columbus Avenue, you said it would be a certain amount of time to get from point A to point B, and in fact, the study by Channel 7 concluded that it took actually double the amount of time that the city said it would. And then Channel 7 actually duplicated that study all around the city, only to find out the same results. And I just have a follow-up question to that. Well, not a follow-up, but just a little bit of a different question. Do we know if, who's actually traveling on their bicycles up Amsterdam? Is it mostly delivery people or is it messengers? And carers?
So,
I guess they're kind of one and the same, but,
just to answer your first question, the ABC News story, in response to our traffic study on Columbus Avenue, after that study, we did go back and we collected we used taxi data, and just to fact check our own information. Our study had a few amount of trips that we used to make the determination. Using the taxi data, which is hundreds and hundreds of trips, we were able to confirm sort of the analysis that we put into that report. ABC News's study only drove the corridors once or twice, so it wasn't actually a rigorous study. But they did make a point. They did make a point on that during certain parts of the day on Columbus Avenue, volumes and traffic was slow. And it was due to that we went out and responded and did a lot of work on changing the parking regulations. And we tried to find ways to move Columbus Avenue better post that report. So we were very responsive to that. And just looking at the city bike data, like I said, we already have 600 or so vehicles using Amsterdam Avenue. Cyclists in general, using Amsterdam Avenue. And just looking at the city bike data, a lot of those trips are happening within the neighborhood. So we can assume a lot of that volume is local general population trips.
so I'm sorry, did you answer?
We really need to move on if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to see this very long-awaited plan, and I think it's going to be a huge, huge improvement for Amsterdam and the Upper West Side in general. I personally will be out on a bicycle once I feel that it's protected and safe for me to get out there. So thank you. My question actually was also about how are people going to get there from the south, and then I don't think you really touched on West End Avenue, where we all know a woman died on Friday. And is it possible to extend like some of the safety improvements on West End that are north of 70th right now, south from there?
Again, to the south, we are going to work with the community to come up with the best connections to the existing route. There is the current connection on Central Park West and then crosstown in the 70s. It's not a protected lane, but the connection is there. West End Avenue, we could certainly keep talking about that in light of the recent fatality and the ongoing issues on the border. So that's not out of our mind.
Thank you so much.
Yes, good evening. My name is Joe Bolanos. I'm a community advocate, excuse me, in the area. I oppose this entire plan only because it defies common sense. You have 3 lanes coming from Amsterdam Avenue. You have 3 lanes coming up from Broadway. So you have 6 lanes of vehicular traffic. They're going to merge on Amsterdam Avenue in reduced lanes of three lanes northwards. That just doesn't make any sense. So as far as I'm concerned, we can't fight it. You're going to do it, but I just want to be on the record that it makes absolutely no sense to do it. And my question is, when you do show these statistics, can you please divide them into commercial and recreational bikes? Because it's somewhat misleading when you say that there's an increase in bicyclists when there are a lot more restaurants that are opening up. So let's keep the facts straight. Can you please divide those?
We're interested in protecting all types of cyclists.
Remaining board speakers, please keep these as questions. We have a very long agenda tonight, and we want to stick to questions only and brief questions for the last 4.
My name is Gerald Grayson. I live on Riverside and 88th Street, and I bike all around the neighborhood all the time. Amsterdam is the most dangerous street for biking on because you try and go along. There's a double parked truck. If you go around him, you're just praying nobody's going to hit you. This would be a super solution. One, in regard to the commercial delivery people, under the Bloomberg administration, an attempt was made to try and control the restaurant delivery people. And, you know, if you go out there today, you see it didn't work very well. Or at least it worked for a week and then it stopped working. Is there anything transportation can do or the community board can do to get the delivery guys on the bikes to have lights, to stop going the wrong way, to stop going through lights?
Yes, we have a commercial bike enforcement unit. And if you provide us with information, we're happy to, go look at any restaurant. What we do is we don't target one individual restaurant, we'll look at the entire block. But this unit of enforcement folks ensures that every cyclist leaving a restaurant has a helmet, has a vest. The vest has to have a discrete number on it and has to say Joe's Pizza on it. So if you see that cyclist doing something wrong, you as a neighborhood resident can call Joe's Pizza and say, I'm not too happy with what I just saw at this location. You can even choose to not frequent that business anymore. But anyway, we will summons for not having the vest, the discrete number, the bell, and the light. And so we are happy to take input on any.
And it's our business consumer issues chair, co-chair is here, George Zuckenfeld. George, raise your hand. He deals with when they have to reapply for their licenses, that we check on that. We have several members of the committee who are here and they'd be happy to talk to you as well.
Well, just as feedback, the compliance is next to zero. They're always going the wrong way. They're always, hardly anybody has a light on. And with the motorized bicycles, they're going fast.
So I assure you, sir, that if the Business and Consumer Issues or the Transportation Committee gets complaints relating to a specific bicycle delivery team, we will act on it.
Well, they're all doing it. And
next question.
How do we identify?
Ask the menu.
No, really. Hi, my name is William Farrell, transportation engineer, and first I want to thank you for a very thoughtful and balanced plan. It's a very good presentation. My question is about mixing zones versus the split signal phase. Tell me why the decision was made to go with mixing zones. I know personally I feel a lot safer in the split phase signals like on 9th Avenue than I do going down like 2nd Avenue, where it's kind of a shocking position. Have you considered doing split phase on all of the intersections, or at least maybe putting some sort of a bollard or something so the vehicles have to make a complete right angle turn and not kind of cut you off there, like as you're trying to go ahead?
One of the things that we find with corridors where we have fully split signal phasing for cyclists and vehicles is very low compliance in cyclist behavior. It is a case where the cyclists don't necessarily want to wait for the light, and it can potentially cause some conflict as other users think that the cyclists have the red. In the mixing zone, we're allowing the cyclists to keep pace with the traffic and allowing them to be in compliance with the signals and the phasing at the intersection.
In my experience, the turn blocked the lane, and then just it's not really mixing. But thank you very much for the question.
Hi, Abby Morrow, 73rd in Amsterdam. Thank you very much for this work. I think it's great. I'm wondering who has the ultimate authority to approve this and move it forward? And is there anything I can do as an individual citizen to ensure this plan as it's presented happens?
In the coming months for final support after we take into account the feedback. So stay tuned for those meeting announcements and join us.
Thank you for this plan. I'm really looking forward to safety improvements. I don't have a question anymore. This was answered. Thank you.
Your name?
Xavier Estevez, 85th Street in Columbus.
Sheldon Klein, member of the Mayor's Commission on Age-Friendly New York. The two questions I have. One is that in looking at the changeover that's projected of bikes for, city bikes for taxis, have you been looking into Uber, Via, and all the others that pull up all over the place? Particularly Via, that now it goes from 110th down to Lower Manhattan and back. I know about 50 people who are using it regularly who were taking the subway before. So I think that should be looked into. That's a major thing in terms of statistics. And second, a general question about motorcycles and motorbikes, having been a victim of being hit by, serious victim of being hit by a motorcycle and almost hit by a motorbike the other day, but I'm very, very cautious given my experience. What regulations, or are there any attention being given to regulations for those type of vehicles on the road? And I know many other people who have, similar problems. Is there anything going on in anybody's radar?
So PD, we need to get PD in on that discussion about dealing with electric bikes and other related types of vehicles.
Okay,
So they are doing a little bit of conversation, but it needs to be talked about more with them.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
So, do you have a comment on this, or do you?
No.
Okay, so we're going to take just a brief break now. The next stage in this meeting, we would like to hear questions of fact from the board for a few minutes. Then, for those who weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, we passed out green sheets of paper if you would like to provide a 1-minute comment. One thing I did not mention is that you can also submit written testimony to the following email address. It's office@cb7.org. We will collect all that feedback in the event that you have longer testimony that you would like to submit beyond the 1 minute. And that will go to the DOT for evaluation as they come back to us with and evaluate the feedback we give tonight and further. So we're going to turn the meeting now back over to the Transportation Committee to handle the first item, because I believe the first applicant from the meeting has arrived.
The gentleman from Two-Way Black Car could come up. We will take your item. I assume it will be relatively quick.
Sorry for the delay. I was at 87th Street like 3 years ago.
So I'm sure that people will ask, have there been any changes since the last approval?
No changes in location.
Your name, sir?
John Mazzia, M-A-Z-Z-I-A, Head of Administration for Two-Way Black Cars and Radio Group. We've been at the same location since 1996. It's a very small base. We are not the type of business model that I heard Uber mention before. We're old school. We take reservations on the phone. We dispatch the vehicles.
You're part of Carmel, I guess?
No, we're in the same building, but it's a separate base.
The website address is Carmel Live.
Well, that's because we had to fill the TLC. We had to fill in a web address.
Oh, I see, okay. Any questions among committee members about renewal for Two-Way Black Car?
Lincoln Town Cars, Toyota Avalons, all sedans, no limousines, no buses, nothing.
And approximately how many of the fleet?
Only 10, very small base.
How many are they implemented in 22 budget in the area?
We have a receipt. There's a motion to approve. Second. All those in favor?
We'll give you a hard time.
6, 7. We won, yes, I didn't see it. Oh, it's 8, okay.
Me? No, I don't know. Oh, business card? No.
Thank you very much.
You want to take a non-committee vote?
I don't know that the non-committee members have heard, gentlemen.
Okay, so are we ready to go back?
We are ready.
Okay, so if we could just get everyone's attention in the audience, please. We're back to the discussion of Amsterdam Avenue. So if we could just get everyone's attention, please. Thank you. We're now turning the meeting over to the committee that's going to ask questions of fact, and then we will take 1-minute comments from the public about the proposal.
Questions of fact, folks? Rich, you're the first.
Yeah, so I have 2 questions of fact. The first one is I was struck that a business owner actually asked if it's possible to limit the hours of deliveries. and I noticed that the traffic on Amsterdam is, the peak traffic is in the afternoon period, especially 3 p.m. and afterwards. Is it something that you could look at of limiting commercial deliveries to before the peak times, so that there's not the conflict between peak traffic and deliveries? And the second question.
Having the businesses limit the deliveries, their delivery hours?
Yeah, well, and doing that by limiting the parking, the commercial parking, so that we're not encouraging deliveries up until 7 p.m.
So you're saying deliveries could be, let's say, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then we would have what we call open meter parking after that for customers or transients? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, we can look at that, absolutely.
Great. And the second is it possible, especially hearing the feedback about commercial bicyclists going the wrong way in Columbus, as we install the new lane, can we step up enforcement by DOT's commercial cyclist unit of cyclists going the wrong way in the protected lanes?
Yeah, we can take that back. That's a good point. And hopefully, again, people will shift to Amsterdam.
Yep.
Some of that.
One question, Sean, you said that in off hours, 59% of the vehicles were speeding. What was your criteria for speeding? Was that going above 25 miles an hour at this point?
Yeah, it was. We did that after the speed limit was reduced to 25, so above 25 miles per hour.
Okay. And do you know what percentage might be going above what is being enforced for speeding on that car? The general rule for that?
So we do have.
Sure. Folks, can we keep the murmur down? We're really trying to get questions answered. Thank you so much.
I don't have that with me, but that's information I can get to you.
Get that in time. That would be great. Same thing on, if you go back to where you have the delay figures, if you can get that slide up here, are you able to explain what those delay figures mean when it's 12:25? Is that second? Is that not clear? Is it time to get through an intersection? Is it the time to go from one block to another? How does that relate to traffic speed and delays on the corridors? It's hard for me to understand from just figures.
So delay refers to the amount of time that a vehicle will spend processing through an intersection.
Which processing through the intersection? Did I stop in the middle of the block to get to the intersection?
If you approach on a green light, you have a 0 delay. The more the progression impacts how frequently you'll get to that green light, and the amount of traffic volume approaching that intersection also impacts how often you'll get that 0, that green light. So as traffic volume builds and other factors come into play, it's less likely that you will have a clear movement through the intersection. So you have 12 seconds of delay means that during that peak time, because of various factors, it'll take you, if you're at the back of the queue or not sort of with the progression, you might experience that amount of delay moving up that corridor on average.
So in other words, anybody with a green gets through the 0,
yeah,
but that's also part of the average.
Correct.
The person who's not as lucky may be there for 30 or more.
Right, if they get there at the end of the progression, if they get there on the red, they have the whole cycle that they're waiting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll just go down this way. Okay. Sean, and Margaret, we ran into some issues when the bike lanes were initially brought to Columbus Avenue with the businesses all along Columbus Avenue. I know we're still talking about developing loading, parking and all for them, but have we really got that down this time? Because we've got a lot of small businesses and we've got a lot of restaurants on Amsterdam Avenue that will be affected by the bike lanes with the diminution of the parking, obviously. So, but yeah, we are Columbus Avenue. Just tell me we have.
So Columbus, we didn't start off with this loading plan. We're starting off with that here because we've seen results on Columbus. That, along with our outreach to the business owners, is going to help us really make sure we're doing the correct regulations for the corridor. We're finding a lot of interesting results that we'll definitely be able to share with you from that, from our outreach, about how people are getting to the businesses and some of the things that the business owners would like to see.
Is that something we should bring to BCI, maybe, a whole plan? Would you be willing to meet with us there? George?
Yeah, I would, first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate this presentation as the co-chair of BCI. But I think it's also important, since we see on a monthly basis all the restaurants and bars and cafes that come before their application, to work with us so we can help get the word out and make sure that many of the small businesses are alerted and we have the survey done. So it's something that I'd like to extend to DOT.
Okay, yeah, we did our first round of outreach, and I'm sure we'll want to do some more because we clearly didn't reach all the businesses, so we can work with you on making sure we're getting all the parties involved.
First of all, I want to thank you for this. If we're going to achieve Vision Zero, we need a vision for our streets, and I think this takes us a long way there. But my first question is about timing. There have been a whole lot of criticisms of this plan. Even its opponents seem to acknowledge that it's going to happen. If we know what works, we know what saves lives, we know that complete streets save lives. If the health department came to us and there was an epidemic and they said, well, we have this vaccine that's going to stop it, why would they wait 3 or 4 months to implement it or to get approval? And I'm just wondering, why are we waiting?
Cool. We have these winter months now to work through the issues at the part of the season that DOT isn't doing implementation. We're wrapping up our current implementation season. So we couldn't install a project at this time. We are saying spring, which is essentially when we start back up. So we have these down months to work out the kinks, and then as soon as we can start working, we will.
Okay. I fear that until we pay our delivery people a living wage and they don't have to survive on tips, that many of them are going to continue to break the law because that's their way to make a living. Unfortunately, have you considered doing both, having a two-way bike lane in Columbus and make Amsterdam a safer street?
I mean, that is one of the items in the study, so the board and the community wanted us to explore that further. We certainly could.
Also on 86th Street, there is no left turn bay. Could you explain why?
On 86th?
Yeah, 86 in Amsterdam, there's
on Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Approaching 86?
Going north on Amsterdam, there's no.
Right, there is no, so it's different than 96 and 79.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know the history of that, but with this project, we will be putting, yeah, it might not have as many people turning left as 96. Right, it doesn't go to the highway, that's what I heard the other day. Okay. So with this project, though, we'll get that.
It will. So what accounts for the difference in the before 96 was about a 0.91, and then in the after 86 is about 0.91. What accounts for that switch?
So the main difference is that at 96 we're able to add those 7 seconds to the through volume, 7 seconds that is already taken out of the signal phase. At 86 there is no existing leading pedestrian interval, so we're going to be taking 7 seconds away from the left turning volume. So that the VC ratio is for all vehicles approaching the through, and the lefts and the rights at the intersection. So by improving it at 96, giving more time to one of the movements, we can improve the VC ratio. But at 86, we're actually going to be taking some time from the left turners that they don't have now. We have to hold them for 7 seconds that we didn't in the past. So that decreases that ratio, or that the delay, increases the delay.
But there will be a delay, a split phase for cyclists going through there. Yeah. Okay.
I have several. While we're going down the road. So I think you said that you did this via simulation, and that's good, but those of us that are out on the street frequently see a truck double parking on either side, and Amsterdam is reduced to far less throughput. Now you're going to take one lane away completely, so if there is a truck double parked, it will reduce it to possibly only 2 or 1 moving lanes. How quickly will the avenue recover from those kinds of impediments?
So we're not taking a lane away completely. We're repurposing it to a left turn lane, which most of those lanes serve that purpose anyway. So we'll keep that in place. Putting the loading regulations in will move the majority, or help move a large number of the loading vehicles out of that moving lane. We can't stop every vehicle from double parking, even with those regulations in place. But by taking the majority out, 1 or 2 offenders, the corridor can handle that. It's if the blocks were covered on both sides with double parking, we couldn't manage that. But an occasional double parking here and there, the corridor can recover. Again, I want to just put out there that the progression on Amsterdam Avenue is really great. Right now, if you went out there, you'll see the pod of vehicles. They get the greens, That's going to be really favorable for this plan to keep working. So there is some balance. There is some room.
That's really important because the M7 and the M11 buses are amongst the slowest in the entire system. So another question would be, if traffic finds that it is not moving as well as it would like to on Amsterdam once this was installed, can Broadway accommodate the traffic that diverts because they don't feel they're moving fast enough or getting throughput enough?
Yeah, we're not going to purposely direct vehicles to Broadway. However, the northbound capacity on Broadway is such that we could remove a lane. So there's definitely space to add additional traffic if people want to divert. The progression on Broadway isn't as favorable, so drivers might find themselves getting a slower trip than they would on Amsterdam, but the capacity is there.
I just wanted to thank you as well for a great plan. Just one question on behalf of myself and the many people who live or venture between 59th and 72nd. I just think it's unfortunate that is being left out of the plan. Two specific things. One is the park. Central Park is still open to cars between 72nd and 59th. So that's already an area that's being somewhat disadvantaged vis-a-vis auto traffic, the ability to get around on a bicycle or walking. And the second thing is that bike lanes work best at keeping bikers in the lanes when they're contiguous, that they don't just suddenly come to an abrupt stop and have to figure out what to do. If they're treated like outlaws, they'll act like outlaws. And I think if there were more contiguous lanes, that would improve the situation for everyone. And so I would just ask you that to the extent you can expedite the planning for south of 72nd, that would be great.
Yeah, we're on board with that. Again, we need to start the discussions with the board to the south and figure out if Amsterdam and other potential routes to connect. Luckily, right now our protected network is on 8th Avenue coming northbound. So a lot of northbound cyclists are already using that network. And when they get to the circle, they hit the Park West, which does have a route. So there is that connection, particularly for those coming from Midtown up, starting on Amsterdam, even at the crosstowns at 55th and 54th, there isn't anything on 10th Avenue yet. 8th Avenue is really a a major northbound connection.
And living on Central Park West, I always wondered, is it possible, it's not ideal to just swap the parking lane and the bike lane at this point, or that's not a possibility?
Yeah, we would need more room than is actually there, because when you swap the parking and the bike lane, it's only 5 feet needed for a standard bike lane, but when you put a bike facility along the curb, you need 11 feet for street sweeping and snow plows. So you need, that's an additional feet that we don't really have on Central Park West.
Thank you so much. I thought the presentation was wonderful. And sadly, a neighbor of mine was hit on 89th in Amsterdam this morning at 11 and ended up in the emergency room and is doing okay. Are there any measures that you can take that are not major that would improve safety on Amsterdam prior to implementation? You know, some painted neck downs, or I don't know what, but you know, because it isn't the most safe street to be crossing.
Yeah,
So
I think
if there are some
the
things
biggest
you can
bang for the buck is to roll this out, you know, as comprehensive and as quickly as possible.
I'd just like to say outstanding presentation. It's great for the community. Great job. Looking forward to the implementation.
I think that wraps up the board questions of fact. We have over 40 people who have asked for comment tonight. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. No guarantees, but we're going to go in the order that they were received. We want to be very cognizant and remind everyone of the 1 minute limit. So again, I'm going to call people up in order of 10. If they can start just lining up here, it'll make it that much quicker for us to record. Also a reminder, you can email your comments into us if you prefer not to stay. All of it will go on the record and be submitted to the DOT office at cb7.org. So I'm going to start with the first 10 folks. Lawrence Sutton, Peter Arnson, Rick Titone, Josh Pinkerton, Matt Pearson, Margaret Newer, Matthew Baldwin, Marty Haskell. If you could please come forward. We're going to start with Lawrence. If you could please just announce your name. 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Lawrence Sutton. I currently reside on West 83rd Street. Just live on Amsterdam for 2 years. Done spend a lot of time on Amsterdam. Realized that the traffic patterns there do not work. It is way too fast. You can sit in an apartment and listen and hear all the horns honking. I'm sure the businesses along there would love to have a much quieter environment to have their businesses. The outdoor cafes will improve tremendously. And I just think it's ridiculous that there's even has to be a dialogue about this. My challenge to DLT is I wish I would get ahead of things and do things quicker. Before city bikes should have happened, this should have been in place. I'm just really excited to try and be quicker on things and make sure things happen quickly for us. It is important. We're literally losing lives in the streets of New York today because these things don't exist. And so that is my charge to you. Thank you. Next presentation.
Peter Arnson.
Thank you. I really applaud this effort to reorganize what has been a highway for way too long. We need safe passage for everyone. Basically, my experience on Amsterdam with the Columbus Amsterdam Business Improvement District is that 2 functional lanes are sufficient for most of the traffic as long as there's the turn lanes and loading zones. And we look forward to working with you and the small businesses that are up there. I would ask you to look at enforcing the speeds of cars and a dedicated bus lane. We have a very diverse neighborhood and a lot of seniors and youth, and a dedicated bus lane would serve the larger population also.
Before we go to the next person, I just wanted to announce our council member, Helen Rosenthal, is here, who has shown great leadership on this issue over the past months, especially. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say or hear.
I'm here to listen. It's great getting all this feedback. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Rick Titone.
Thank you. I live on the 8th near Central Park West. I lived on Amsterdam for 1.5 years. I bike Amsterdam on a regular basis. I bike through the neighborhood, I commute to Penn Station daily. And the people that think that common sense precludes the idea of slowing down traffic on Amsterdam have not been on Amsterdam, because it doesn't need to go that fast. It is a neighborhood street. There are businesses, there are children all over the neighborhood, and they need to be protected. Most of the people who have died in the last 10 days in the city were killed by speeding drivers. If we can slow down traffic on Amsterdam, if it takes you an extra 40 minutes to get from 72nd to 96, I think that's a fair price to pay.
Matt Pearson, I live at 70th and Amsterdam. I thought there were going to be a lot of people who spoke before me because I mostly wanted to talk about these two. I think this is great. Thank you. So I'm one of those people who signed up for something about this summer. There's a dog right across the street. I think the enhancements you've already made southbound and Columbus are great. Thank you. And just this week, I can actually commute down to my office. I just got a recreational liker, but yeah, the two scariest parts of my commute coming home are Columbus Circle and the one block I spent on Amsterdam between 16th and 70th. I think we really do need to connect that network up there, especially because even from 10th Avenue up, it's really hilly. It's going to be really challenging for a lot of people. So I think anything you can do to make that connection from 8th Avenue up to Amsterdam that takes into account kind of those 2 points there would be great. And also just recognize that the way that you did in the Amsterdam bow tie, people were jaywalking across there and you basically cut by that. You go into other areas where that might make sense to do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andy Haskell. I'm going to yield my time to Deborah Travis.
My name is Deborah Travis. I'm a nurse and trauma program manager at St. Luke's, Mount Sinai St. Luke's. And I just want to tell you that over the years that I've been in New York, I've been horrified and shocked and appalled at the amount of violence that we see as a result of cars and people being hit and killed. And the fact that you are taking this opportunity to do something about it that can really make a difference and save lives and make this a better city is an amazing and wonderful thing. So I wish it would go all the way up, since we'll still be getting people that are getting hit in front of our hospital, but it's great. It's a great and wonderful thing, and it needs to happen. So thank you.
So it's Alexander Medvedev, Julie Leak, Mary Beth Kelly, Sophia Russo, Brian Haberman, Gerald Grayson. If you could move forward. Go ahead.
Hi, Josh Pinkerton. I live on 76th Street. I commute to work on my bike. I commute to local neighborhoods, local businesses. I think this is a great plan. I think we need this. This is going to improve the safety of our neighborhood. This is the first issue that I've cared about enough to come to one of these meetings and get involved. I think this is a huge improvement in the neighborhood, and I hope we can get it passed as soon as possible.
My name is Julie Leak. I live at 788 Columbus, the super block between 97 and 100. So I walk across Columbus or Amsterdam every single day. And sometimes the pictures that you show don't really show the reality of the neighborhood and all the unintended consequences of the development, the retail stores, and so forth. So as I watch the congestion going down Columbus and seeing 97th Street as it was today when I had to come to this meeting, and it's just, bumper to bumper traffic. I see the bike lane on Amsterdam Avenue is making a bad situation worse for us. And certainly I believe that if it were maybe on West End Avenue, it would not make matters worse for us because we're very congested. And I think it's dangerous for the first responders that they can't come through. So that's why.
Hi, Alex Medvedev. I have a question regarding some scenarios. With reduced capacity, what is the traffic scenario of a 2003 blackout or similar disaster on the effect of getting people out of Manhattan? Will reduced capacity affect that? Also, a large number of 100-year-old buildings along the route. How is it the fire department access to buildings and hydrants affected? We had a situation on 2nd Avenue and 7th Street in March of this year, where we had to have 250 firemen, 50 fire vehicles. the entire street and it has a bike lane on it. So what kind of effect do we have disasters? Have you modeled that in your concept? Thank you.
The 11-foot, just because our bike facilities are 11 feet wide, as I mentioned before, you will see emergency response vehicles using those, and they're, sort of encouraged if there is traffic or congestion to use those spaces. So in any type of situation like that, that lane is available to them to use.
And each one of our traffic projects entails a review by the fire department. We work very closely with them before we implement anything.
But how about the 2003 blackout? Amsterdam Avenue was a major route to get out of Lower Manhattan. Without it, you're reducing it by about 20-30%.
Well, we're accounting for the same number of vehicles being able to use Amsterdam Avenue both before and after. So we don't believe we're going to have any impacts in that kind of event.
I'm Mary Beth. Most of you know me. I've been standing here before most of you for the past 9 years. I'm a founding member with Sophia Rousseau of Families for Safe Streets, and Families for Safe Streets is comprised of people who have lost a loved one in traffic violence or have themselves been severely injured. I lost my husband 9 years ago, Sophia, her daughter. And I am really thrilled today, and I'm very grateful from my soul to DOT for coming up with this kind of plan. My husband was killed on his bicycle. I'm a cyclist. I also walk this city like crazy. And a complete street like this is going to make a huge difference. I do wish there was a dedicated bus lane. But, as Ken said before, if we were losing people like this, if we had the numbers ending up in emergency rooms, and I now run a group at Families for Safe Streets for people who have been injured, and they're walking in with their canes and their crutches and their casts on, and the amount of time that they've had to take from work in order to go to rehab and have surgeries and deal with pain is abominable. And we as a compassionate city should never, ever allow this. And if we know that there are answers to be found in creating boulevards like this rather than killing ones as we have no possible morally correct answer but to do it. So I beseech you to put this through. Thank
Hi, my name is Sophia Russo, and I just want to thank the Community Board 7 and the DOT for this opportunity and for this presentation. 2 years ago, I lost my 4-year-old daughter, Ariel Russo, on 97th Street in Amsterdam. She was standing on the corner waiting for the light to change when a reckless driver jumped the curb and pinned her against the restaurant on the corner. And she lost her life that day, and my mother was severely injured to the point that she still has not been able to return to work today. When Ariel first started preschool and my husband and I walked her to school on the first day, we said to ourselves, Amsterdam Avenue is really dangerous. We saw it in a whole new light. We walking our daughter to school, whereas before we were just, drivers, and we saw it as, okay, this is convenient, but walking our daughter to school, we saw it as, this is really scary, this is really dangerous. And when our daughter was killed on Amsterdam Avenue, we looked at each other and we said, oh my gosh, we had a feeling that something like this was gonna happen on this avenue. And so to see this plan here, it makes me feel so grateful from the bottom of my heart, because I feel like this is gonna save lives and this is gonna make a difference. And I also feel sad because I feel like if this had been in place on June 4, 2013, Ariel would still be here today. But it's not too late, and when this gets implemented into our street, onto Amsterdam Avenue, this is the beginning of a paradigm shift. It's the beginning of a culture shift. And our children who walk to school are watching who takes priority over our New York City streets, cars or them. And so when they're watching how we build our streets, they're learning what makes sense for their future and how they're gonna continue to design and reform their streets when they're running the city and when they're in control. And so I am just, as a mother who lost her child on Amsterdam Avenue, I am so grateful for this plan, and I know that it's gonna save lives, so thank you.
They speak more loudly than anyone could, including me. Of course, losing loved ones, you don't realize how bad that is until it happens to you. But I'm here to just support the proposal. Brian Hoberman at 97th and Amsterdam Avenue, at the corner. I support this proposal. Some of us bike, some of us drive, some of us take the bus. Every one of us is a pedestrian. And I think it's important to keep in mind that this is for the safety of everyone. And what happened on Columbus of reduced injuries and collisions in all categories will happen on Amsterdam as well. And I hope we can prevent any more unnecessary deaths. We shouldn't be in harm's way just for crossing the street or even being on the sidewalk. In terms of the bike lanes, I think if you framed it as an emergency lane, which it is, it's big enough for ambulances, police cars, fire trucks. Everybody would want a bike lane or an emergency lane on their street so they can get through the traffic. And I think we should keep that in mind when we're talking about this. Thank you.
We're pleased to have a special guest with us who's just joined us. Our Department of Transportation Commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, is here. She has been with us as we've addressed a number of really important neighborhood transportation concerns, and we're very pleased that she could join us tonight and say a few words.
I apologize, I couldn't be here sooner. This is such an important meeting, a long-standing speaking engagement, so I dashed over here from Queens. And I've heard we've had a great meeting tonight. I know, I just want to say how proud I am of my team. I would say Amsterdam Avenue, there's not been a street in New York City that I think I've heard more about. One that I know everyone cares deeply about. It's such an important artery in this neighborhood, and I think we've come up with, I have to say, I think a brilliant design that is going to make it safer, make it accessible for cyclists, for pedestrians, keep traffic flowing. I think I'm really proud of the work the team has done here, and thrilled to work with you all, to work through all the questions and concerns, and I think come up with a really safe and livable Amsterdam Avenue. So I just want to thank you all, and it's great to be here tonight.
Okay, so we're going to go to our next 10 speakers. We have Richard Barr, Seth Kaufman, Susan Crawford, Ethan Hunt, Jillian Lazaridis, Reed Ruby, Judith Calamandre.
So a lot has been said about safety tonight. I just want to point out that if you choose Amsterdam and Columbus Avenue for protected bike lanes, they are going to remain truck and bus routes for northbound traffic to the George Washington Bridge or Cross Bronx Expressway or southbound from them, because they can't use the West Side Highway either way. So there's going to be these big trucks and buses barreling down or barreling up those avenues in any case. Find a way to slow them down, that's great. But when you create a protected bike lane on avenues with those big vehicles going by, it seems to me that a new safety issue is created, wherein if somebody wants to park next to the protected bike lane, they're about a third of the way out into the avenue, and they have to suddenly stop and go out, pull in, and when they are leaving, the same thing, angle out, and the possibility of accidents for those cars that are parking outside those bike lanes seems to me to be something to be very concerned about. And the other thing about Amsterdam and Columbus with all of that, all of the stores, you know, you've got an intractable delivery problem for these stores, no matter what you think you're going to do to solve it. So it seems to me that what makes sense is that bike lanes on streets that don't have buses, don't have trucks, and don't have stores. And beyond that, nobody's talking about one other safety issue, which is, as far as I see it, for those with canes and walkers and wheelchairs, the vision impaired, the hearing impaired, who enter, you know, go off a curb and into a crosswalk and can't see or can't hear a bicycle coming by that might misbehave. There's a whole other kind of safety issue for them that is introduced by a protected bike lane.
I just want to follow up two things from before, and then I have a whole new idea. Susan Crawford, 110 Amsterdam. The 4 to 7 p.m. short trips, speaking from experience, I can attest, are most likely caregivers and parents picking up their children from school and after school activities. I certainly used cabs then for a whole bunch of years to get home in time to do the homework, may I say. Second thing is, when you measure the transit time change as a result of the Columbus Avenue, you looked at taxi studies. And I would just say taxis, like anybody in a normal vehicle, get off the route as soon as they're being slowed down. So if you're just following the taxi, but not where the taxi actually went, I don't think that would give you a true picture. One of the best things about having public forums is sometimes you sit here and you just go, oh wait, why don't you just? And so my why don't you just is do this on Broadway. It would be very European if you have an uptown and a downtown lane next to the malls, bus lanes over where the bus lane should be. It's already a quieter street because, as you said, 2nd Avenue subway. Sorry, 72nd Street subway. It's already a mall in the theater district. You could have it for the entire length of Manhattan. And it could be the north-south route that everybody seems to want. And you could take back the Columbus Avenue lane and leave it for the trucks. Make it safer, but the trucks have to. We just all know that. Thanks.
Reed Rooney, I live on 96th and Central Park West. I want to thank the Department of Transportation for coming up with what, in my opinion, is a great plan. When I go back to the bow tie presentation you guys did 2 years ago, and then comments were made, you came back with a plan, comments were made, you changed the plan. Things that people said you actually took to heart and changed it, I think, for the better. And I expect you're going to do the same thing with what you've been given tonight, plus other things that are going to be sent to you. So I want to thank you for that. I can't imagine a worse client. I'm an architect, I might have a husband and wife. That's bad enough. You guys have the whole city. And I don't know how you can do it, but I want to thank you for persevering.
Is Jay Demas, John Simpson, Bob Lockfeld, George Bean, Martin Wallace, and Andreas Stransky. You can just announce your name if you get started.
John Simpson, again, West 87th Street. I would just like to take my time to thank Families for Safe Streets, our Department of Transportation and Commissioner Trottenberg, our wonderful council people, Mark Levine and Helen Rosenthal, and the 200 plus businesses who have signed on to a coalition letter in support of this project for their leadership. This is an essential project to making this neighborhood safer and really more of a neighborhood. We're a city, we're not a suburb. Let's have a street that is worthy of New York City and not like somewhere in New Jersey.
I'm Bob Feld, and I'm the Democratic District Leader, and I represent the area from 96 to 110th Street. I'm very concerned about this this proposal. The vast majority of the people that I know in my neighborhood are very concerned about it because most 95% don't bike. Biking is not for everyone. I do bike. Most of the elderly people are inconvenienced by them. They're uncomfortable when there's a lot of bikes. They already find Riverside Park, the path there uncomfortable because there's so many bikers. So, certainly we need bikes. I don't think we need it on every avenue. I could suggest that you look at West End Avenue. That is a better one for that because it is more residential. And so I hope you look at it very carefully at the people who actually live in the neighborhood and how much they want this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay Damas. I'm on the internet in Amsterdam, lived there for 15 years. I've been to a community board meeting before about this, so thank you, the board and DOT for this perfect plan. My mother is staying with us a lot more frequently. She's 82, just crossing Amsterdam freaks me out, and I always escort her across when my wife does. I'm also a commuter on bicycle. I've done it for 6 years now. So I use Columbus, I use Broadway, I use 8th Avenue, I go around or at jobs. I would love to have the Amsterdam bike lane as well. So, and lastly, the traffic is way too fast on Amsterdam. I think that the traffic calming that you are proposing to introduce will help us out a great deal. So I'm a huge supporter of this plan, and thank you to the board and to the community.
Good evening, Martin Wallace. I am representing, of course, PSCD4 and also CB9, but also myself. Independent business owner in Canada, so I bike all over the city. And I've been waiting so much to see a plan like this. I'm very excited to ride on it. Thank you for all the work you've put into this. The one thing, the comment I have had, and I bring this up every time I see a DOT proposal, I know you guys are doing what you can, and I think we're headed in the right direction. I think we all need to remember when we talk about moving traffic, what the traffic is and what communities the traffic is moving through. In Manhattan, less than 25% of people own a car, and yet we're taking massive amounts of our street space and giving it over to cars. So already, we're headed in the right direction. And I think we can do more. I think we do need, as the previous couple of people mentioned, dedicated bus lanes. In fact, those dedicated bus lanes could also be used for emergency vehicles, and if they were separated the right way, it would be an effective way to move in an emergency situation, move traffic in or out of the city, whatever way it needs to go. So that's my biggest comment here. I think we really need to start shifting our focus on moving cars and start remembering that on this island, cars are not the dominant situation. It's people. People were walking, people were using public transit, people were on the bus, people.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to talk. My name is Andreas Taransky, and this is my son, Kai Taransky. We live on 92nd Street in Columbus, and we're very thankful to have the Columbus bike lane, but he still can't bike back from school because there's no return path. Also, my 73-year-old mother lives in the same building with us, and she greatly appreciates the reduced crossing distance as a pedestrian. I think it's ironic that the bike lanes actually help pedestrians almost more than anybody else. So if anything, the pedestrians should be here up in arms saying, give us a bike lane so that you can save us. And to Ken's point, let's do this right away so we can save people. Just 1 second.
Sorry, I'm gonna take a little bit extra time, but I don't bike all the time to school. I usually scooter and stuff, but every day I cross Amsterdam Avenue twice, and I always notice that there's a ton of cars and they always are going very fast, and there's a lot of trucks. So my sister, who's 6 years old, and I think that that's quite dangerous. And I use the bike lane whenever I bike with my dad. And we can't get back up, so we usually have to go through Central Park or up the Central Park West, which it's pretty dangerous because there's also a ton of cars going fast. So I think this is a great idea, and I would love it to be put into, yeah.
Great.
Steve McKeon, Dave Witzke, David Vassar, Gary Greengrass, Ray Newman, Willis Pilzer, Kathy Encino. Mr. McKeon, are you here? McKeon? Or Ms. McKeon, Dave McKeon? Dave Lipsky then? Okay.
I am Dave Lipsky. I live on 98th Street. I've lived on the west side all my life. I'm not necessarily against bike lanes theoretically, but I think the rush to build this particular bike lane is a little premature. I'm concerned that the community board has really ignored some of the fallout of all of the DOT efforts on actions north of 96th Street. Broadway going south has never been worse. The traffic is backed up entirely. The loading zones are double, there's a lot of double parking. Bus lanes are taken up by the CBS. And I think before we go ahead, we need, DOT should demonstrate, and the community board should demonstrate that you're effective in developing a coordinated enforcement program to make sure that all of the promises that are made about better enforcement are actually implemented and can be implemented. I'm also particularly concerned about the fact that it's going to get worse, as someone else has said, when they start working on the Jewish Life Care Center, and traffic on Amsterdam and on 97 and 98 is going to get a lot worse. So delay any decision until after that project is completed.
Sir, you were referring to problems southbound on Broadway, north of 96th Street?
Right, but yes, tremendous problems.
You should come to a typical transportation committee meeting and bring that issue with you, because we heard it from quite a few people. There is a narrowing of lanes north of 96th Street on Broadway, and it's caused some problems. So we want to talk about it.
There was 3 traffic cycles where no traffic.
That's not true.
Hi, my name is David Vassar. I live at the 123rd in Amsterdam. I overlook that avenue. It's a wonderful site. Sarcasm there. I really appreciate the DOT's plan. I think it's going to make this avenue safer for all concerned. I've got a 16-year-old son who's a great cyclist, very sensible, and great, just great sense of how to deal with the streets. But I worry about him each time he goes out. So thanks for making it safer. Just a quick comment. I guess I live in phase 0 as far as the planning is concerned. So basically, I really can't wait till the DOT gets to our part of town. It's two-way at that point. One of the slides mentioned bad driver behavior. There's a lot of that where I live in my area. So I hope you'll come and help us tame that a little bit. Thanks for favoring pedestrians and cyclists. Motoring, I just have to say, is by far, and in my own mind, the least desirable way by far of getting around this town. So thanks for helping us change that paradigm as well. Thanks a lot.
Good evening. My name is Gray Newman. I live on West 79th between Columbus and Amsterdam. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank DOT for the vision on this plan, and to thank the community board for soliciting so much feedback from the community. Because we've had a recent example with the museum expansion, we had public officials representing the community standing out ahead of the community in support of a proposal before getting community feedback. And so I just want to thank you. I'm not a bike owner. I don't have a car. I'm not a small businessman. My training is in economics. There's costs, there's benefits, there's winners, there's losers. Your job, I think, is to try to add up all of the gains and losses and try to decide if we're moving ahead or not. What I am, and I think everyone in this room is a pedestrian. I've heard that again and again. And so I appreciate your support in recognizing the importance of pedestrians, particularly in the city, which is part of what Manhattan stands for. It's an unusual place in the United States where pedestrians are the majority. And thank you again.
Hi, my name is Gary Greengrass. I'm a Gary Greengrass, lifetime resident of the Upper West Side, business owner, and the father of a young child. I understand the rationale for trying to put a bike lane on Amsterdam. However, I would oppose it. Being on Columbus Avenue, I find it very dangerous. With my son, we almost got hit twice by bicyclists. Very dangerous. If I have to cross over, I go to 85th Street as opposed to even 86th Street. Amsterdam Avenue is a main thoroughfare out of the city. I think, as people have mentioned this evening, for emergency vehicles, for trucks. And I think it's something with our alternatives in the neighborhood, which exist. We were talking about, they have to fix Columbus Avenue with the bike lane. If they make it two ways, it has to be safer. I'm all for safety of every human being. A couple of years ago, a gentleman was killed coming in by bicyclists coming out of a restaurant on 77th Street, Italian restaurant. Net matters available, but the one a little further up. So we have to consider that we need safe drivers of bicycles and drivers of vehicles. And as a business owner, they approached me when you're going to get deliveries. We can't control that. There's a couple of deliveries. If you get a perishable of bread or something, I'm not sure, but most places you cannot control delivery. You say, can I get a morning delivery? Can I get an afternoon? Listen, we'll get to you when we get to you. This is what it comes down to. And as an owner too, small business, we have people that drive to our place, taking way more parking spaces. It's 87th Street between Broadway and West End. They demolished the building, took away a parking lot. We garage a vehicle that we own. It's gone up $300 a month. So there's limited parking space, even if you're going to use a parking lot for a customer or for ourselves. And I thank you for your time, and I do.
Gary, what's the latest you normally get deliveries of any kind?
What's the latest? Sometimes some come 5 o'clock.
As late as 5 o'clock.
Right. And where are you going to be able to spray the things for these street fair? This is no change to it. Exactly. Thank you for your time. Great.
Hi, my name is Willow Stelzer. I live at 35 West 90th Street, and I've been seeing me come to these community board meetings for a long time. I started coming when Columbus Avenue was in discussion, and I was very excited to see that get implemented, and have seen big improvements on Columbus Avenue because of that. And at the same time, when that was happening, my mother was very ill, and she was really afraid to cross the big avenues because she would get tired. So I'm really hoping this happens on Amsterdam Avenue as well. We really need it. So I got so excited about Columbus Avenue that I started volunteering to petition neighbors to see about the support for Amsterdam Avenue, and me and others have gotten over 3,500 signatures already from neighbors who really want to see this happen. So I'm very excited to see the strong plan that DOT keep and I really hope that this moves forward. Thank you.
Last, our final group of speakers, so I'm just going to call you all out. Javier Estevez, Daniel Hank, Richard Pubman, Margaret Newer, Matthew Baldwin, Michael Busting, Gerald Grayson, and anyone else, I guess, who has not filled out a form and plans to speak. You can.
Elizabeth, who was the first name?
Javier Estevez.
Hi, my name is Xavier Estevez. I live on 85th and Columbus, facing Columbus Avenue. I moved there a year ago. Before that, I lived at 75th and West End for the past 5 years. So I really like the Columbus Avenue bike lane. I use it to commute to work. I find it's very safe. I don't have the same experience on Amsterdam Avenue, so I usually end up taking the West Side bike path. The problem that I find is that it's difficult to get from the west side to Columbus Avenue on 79th Street, especially with that hill from Riverside to Broadway. It's really dangerous to race those cars that are coming off the highway and onto the streets. So anytime we forward to make that would be helpful, although I'm really in favor of the Amsterdam bike lane because I find Amsterdam very dangerous. I'm one of those people who takes a short taxi trip from, say, Fairway or Trader Joe's back to my home. I feel silly doing it, but at the same time, I wish I could city bike back from Fairway, but it's just too dangerous. I've done it, and I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands every time. So it's really scary. I really hope we can fix Amsterdam Avenue and make it useful for everyone. So thank you to the DOT for your presentation. It makes it more serious.
Hi, I'm Richard Klugman. I live on 70th between Columbus and Amsterdam. I have two daughters who have gone and are going to MS54 up on 108, also between Columbus and Amsterdam. So I say this not only as an avid cyclist and an Upper West Side resident for the past 25 years, but also as a parent and someone who grew up in the suburbs and cycled to school. I had a similar length of a commute as my daughters, and I really think it would be so awesome if they or future teenagers could have the same kind of commute that I did. And I really think there's just kind of 4 simple things we need. And we're already well underway. A bike path going north, a bike path going south. The city bike certainly helps so that the kids can, pick up and drop off. And then the 4th one, and I thought Ariel Russo's mother pointed this out very well, the cultural change. And I think if you do those first 3, we get that cultural change. And that's the 4th, and that'll be, I think, a lot better way for future teenagers going to and from school. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniel Hank. I'm a lifelong Upper West Sider. Grew up on 76th in Amsterdam. I'm president of a co-op board on 70th and Amsterdam. I have 3 kids who all went to public school in the neighborhood. I'm against this project because we've been without it for over 100 years. Amsterdam works just great. I checked the PowerPoint, all the statistics. There's been 1 fatality in the last 5 years. I would have to put Amsterdam on among the safest streets in New York City, that there's only been 1 fatality in the last 5 years. Albeit tragic and it's awful, it's still a pretty safe street. What this is going to do is create more congestion. It's going to create more noise. You want those honking horns all the time because they can't drive fast. People are killed not by bad traffic patterns, they're killed by bad drivers. Go after the bad drivers. All these great bicyclists, and I applaud all you who commute by bicycle. It's terrific. You're not going to do it in the snow. You're not going to do it when the road's icy. You're not going to do it when it's 30 degrees. And it's like that for 5 months out of the year. It's going to create longer commute times. Your taxi bill is going to go up by $10 just to crawl up Amsterdam an extra, 1 mile an hour. And the city bikes, they're all going to be gone when it snows. They're going to get plowed in. And that's all I got to say. And I think we should use the money in other better places like, education or fixing the buses or other great transportation.
We're fixing the buses, don't worry about it. Thank you. Dave?
Hi, my name is David Fell. I came here tonight to tell you I do support this plan, and I hope the board will support it also. I want to encourage DOT also to reach out to MTA Bus to talk about the concept of some sort of exclusive bus lane, possibly the use of select bus service with extended islands that stick out, so that a bus can make a very quick stop, staying in its lane, and then just move forward very quickly. I think that would work very well and would really improve the whole scene. Thank you.
I think that concludes the public comments we've gotten, unless there's anyone left who'd like to speak for a minute. We did want to give DOT, I don't know if any of you would like to give any sort of final closing remarks or next steps that you'd like to add before we conclude the meeting. And thank you very much.
Not a lot to say at this point. We took in a lot of great feedback. We really appreciate tonight.
We have a little more work to do. We want to follow up a little bit more with the businesses and then take into account a lot of what we heard tonight. So we'll plan to come back, probably not next month, but hopefully the month after, January, and continue the discussion with probably a refined proposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of your work on this. This is amazing, and just the incredible amount of work you put into this. We look forward to continuing the conversation. Bobby, do you have a question?
I just wanted to add one more thought, which is the concept of safe corridors instead of like automatic contiguous bike lanes, wherever you're thinking of. So they were talking about 8th Avenue, people are already going up Central Park West. If you thought about that is the bike lane up until 72nd or 79th or something, then it connects to Broadway, for instance. There are a lot of places that are just quieter and safer, and I really wish you would think about that, because no matter what, those trucks are going to be going up and down Amsterdam. They should be careful and quieter on those avenues, but I don't know why bikers want to be on either of those avenues at all. Okay, but you can get there from bike lanes on other streets. If you can have a quick response. Yeah, it's not a direct response, but as we waited and waited for this long waited proposal, my greatest fear is then that we're going to wait until somebody dies. We're going to put the safety improvements in place after someone dies instead of before. And so Theo Richard actually reminded me that somebody did already die, lost a very good job. And it doesn't matter that everybody's here, but it matters so many times. Please don't water this down and then wait and come back and strengthen it after the challenge.
I think the whole reason we've been focused on this is because we do care about safety, and it is paramount. So I think everyone in this room actually does care about keeping and having no more fatalities. I think this committee in particular cares about that. So a lot of work for us to do heading into the fall and winter. Our transportation committee meets the second Tuesday of the month, so our next meeting will be the second Tuesday in December, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thank you again to DOT, and have a great night, everyone.